I grew up in the 70s and 80s, the age of 8-tracks, Sony Walkmans, and boomboxes. We were never short for entertainment with all these great musical choices. All of them went away, all of them consigned to the collector's closets or garbage dumps. For many, that's where the record collection ended up, only to be replaced by the compact disc. Despite the best efforts of the giant record labels and their push to get us to buy our music on CD or digital download, here we are in 2014, and vinyl records are still here. Enjoying a renaissance, a full-on revival, and extended play. So right here is like the last 10 or 15 seconds of the very first album I ever bought with my own money. This is what started the whole vinyl obsession with records for me, with Supertramp's Breakfast in America. We'll just fade it out here like that. And this is the album cover here. I bought this with my very first money, my allowance. It was probably $5.99 at Sam the Record Man. $5.99. You know, you can't buy much any albums these days for $5.99, even on MP3. But I remember my dad taking me out to buy this, and I bought a 7-inch single with it, and shortly after I got Blondie's Parallel Lines with it, and that had that song Heart of Glass. But it didn't really start with this. This was just my own personal adventure. We started back here with these things, the Rolling Stones. This was like an album my dad and my mom brought to Canada with them when they immigrated in like 1968. They brought this from Scotland, and I've got it today now. And it was one of the first albums when I got my very first record player. It was like a little Dorchester white plastic thing with really cheap white plastic speakers. And I played this, and I played some Beatles albums that my dad gave me, stuff like this, Something New by the Beatles. And it's kind of a quirky album because it had the German version of I Want to Hold Your Hand, and like Komm Gimmer der dein Hand or something like that. You know, it sounded really funny when they're singing in German. So that's it, really. That's how the thing started. Our journey to find the roots of the revival of vinyl begins in downtown Hamilton, my hometown, Wilson Street to be exact. Dr. Disc has been a fixture on the independent record scene for over 30 years now, and in Hamilton for 23. Mark Furukawa came to Hamilton to manage a new location back in 1991. Mark, like myself, understands the attachment that we have to vinyl.
I think there's a real interaction that's with records, especially, or any physical format, that's lost with digital. So for example, with a record, if you're talking about the process of listening to music, like you said, reading the liner notes, looking at the cover, you actually have to put the record on, flip it over, you know, it's an active process versus listening to digital as a passive process.
Alan Cross, radio personality on CFNY 102.1, also known as The Edge, an author as well as a creator of some of the best radio shows going. He dives in to give us his take on the resurgence of the vinyl craze.
And I think one of the reasons people really like vinyl is because it's so damned inconvenient. You need special equipment, it's not portable, you have to sit in a certain place in a room in order to actually experience it to its fullest extent. It's reasonably fragile. There are a lot of things that make vinyl inconvenient, but what it does is it shows to everybody how much you love music. I am going to endure all these inconveniences, all these problems, all these extra expenses, just to show how much more I love music than the regular person.
Gigs! Hey. How's it going, man? I decided to call my high school buddy Greg, who's also been DJing slightly longer than myself, to come over and explain his reasons for loving vinyl.
It's not just vinyl, but yeah, vinyl is better for many reasons.
Give us why you like it and all that stuff.
Well, one of the reasons is because vinyl comes in things like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you just don't get that anymore.
No, especially not CDs. You don't even see that now.
So that's one of the reasons I love vinyl. Always have, always will. The other one was, of course, because of the inside. You can actually read the lyrics. Mm-hmm. You know?
Cool when you used to see the Who song, the albums, and they had the swear words in it. You see the song got swear words, cool.
And like one of my first albums was Kiss Love Gun.
Oh yeah.
And it came with a gun. I mean, we're not even talking about vinyl yet, but that's what we're talking about in albums.
Yeah.
That's what was so great about them.
Got stuff in it, you know.
Growing up, our choices for securing the latest records in Hamilton were outstanding. We had Cheapies, Record World, Zat Records, and countless others. Failing that, we could always head into Toronto to go find the great UK imports and 12-inch singles of the day that were hard to find. The Record Peddler and Play the Record, Sam the Record Man's Yonge Street flagship store were amazing places to get lost in the record sections. But with the advent of CD and online shopping in the early 2000s, record shops and records looked like they were headed for extinction.
When we opened, vinyl was front and center when you walked in the door, and then as the CDs sort of took over, it came downstairs, sort of out of sight, out of mind, and then it was actually relegated to maybe a quarter of our downstairs, but we still had it, but it was just like this afterthought almost.
A few years into the new millennium, the table started to turn. Vinyl was selling more. Since 2004, worldwide vinyl sales have generated over $892 million. Compared to the first half of 2013 to the first half of 2014, sales in the US have increased by 40.4%. By end of the year, Nielsen SoundScan projects 8.3 million vinyl units sold. But what was causing this sudden resurgence?
There was a turning point somewhere around 2007 where some labels decided that, you know, it'd be kind of cool in an old school kind of way to put out some of our new releases on vinyl to counteract downloads. You can't download a vinyl record. Well, you can download the music, but you can't download everything that goes along with it. The liner notes, the vinyl itself, the cover artwork, all that sort of stuff. And much to everybody's surprise, a lot of people began buying vinyl, even though a new vinyl record cost $25 or $27 or $35 or even $40.
So why do you think vinyl's coming back?
Nostalgia. Kids growing up these days, to them it's something really special. They don't know what the heck vinyl is.
Yeah.
You know? Ask a kid what a 45 is nowadays. And they're gonna be like, oh, what? 45? What are you talking about? But
I think it's a gun.
yeah, pretty much, eh? Colt 45. No.
A lot in the beard.
Yeah. So that I think that has a lot to do with it. People just want it to remember the good old days.
Yeah.
The Generation Y age group are some of the biggest spenders in record stores. In a rather interesting quirk, many of those who are purchasing vinyl have found records to be cool without actually owning a turntable. Their music collection is currently collated on their iPhones and iPods, but now they actually understand what it means to read liner notes.
I'd probably say that the more I see younger people buying records, it probably has to do with just the trend of retro. People like, you know, old school things. They think it's cool. Not saying it's not cool, but it's, you know, I feel like a lot of younger people just sort of hop onto those trends, the retro trends.
What seems like a great comeback feel-good story leaves a pressing question. Can this shift in popularity be sustained?
What we might be seeing is the creation of a hardy niche within the music marketplace that people will continue to sustain. I mean, spinning discs and the music it holds has been with us since about 1900. So it's survived an awful lot of stuff over the last 114, 115 years. And there's no real reason to see it disappear entirely. I mean, if the CD didn't kill it at the end of the 20th century, it's still got an awful lot of life. And what's really interesting is people are realizing that if you want true high fidelity, very few things sound better than a 180-gram vinyl record on a very good turntable through a decent set of speakers.
For me, my record collection for me was almost like my own personal library, like a resource for my ears and my mind. It wasn't my eyes, because with records you got to see everything. But for me, it was a collection, almost like I said, like a public library. Like the library had books and had different offers and different types of genres. For me, I had everything from the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. I had Depeche Mode, Smiths. I had the Talking Heads, you know, Van Morrison, Stevie Wonder. Some great albums in here. The Talking Heads, this was one of the best albums that these guys ever made. But for me, everything there was always a song, there was always a sound about it that just kind of resonated with me, takes me back to a place and a time that, not because I'm looking at it as something from younger and wishing I was back there, because, you know, you can't go back in time, but it gives you a warmth that you don't get by listening to music off a laptop or an MP3 or an iPod. Records, It's a connection to the past, but it also gives your sense and your soul some sort of like it almost like a fire inside you to warm you up and take when you're thinking back about these things. And as I said, nothing will ever beat 180 grams.